Yes, indeed, we are back here at the Pan-African Parliament. As I indicated earlier on, the institution is now on a break where caucuses are trying to find a way forward. But with me earlier on, you asked me what happened to Pemmy Majodina. I have her here. She is going to tell us what transpired. Pemmy Majodina, quite a rough afternoon, and it looks like you also got a bit of that tension.
Indeed, Sophie and the viewers at home, it's quite a rough and chaotic situation now, because the matter is about the election on a rotational principle. As I was sitting in my chair, I've been calling for order and saying, let the House adjourn, and we call AU to come and intervene and conduct elections. As I was doing that, I could see that there was a scuffle down there. People were fighting physically. I saw Honorable Jibiri from Senegal running and attacking Honorable Togomberi from Zimbabwe. I went in there to make peace, and I was trying to separate them. It is at that stage when I was attacked by Honorable Jibiri, who's the chair of the rules, and he kicked me. It is against that background that I'm going to open a case of gender-based violence, because I've been doing this since to separate people who want to fight. But now that the fight must be then be directed to me, it's just uncalled for, and I'm not going to take this lying low.
You're not going to take this lying low. There are accusations that you have people with guns in the hall here. Are you aware of that?
I'm not aware of that, but everyone passes through the security gate. The people who might account better are those that are in the security. I've not seen anyone with a gun, unfortunately. The delegates that I'm with, I've not seen any person carrying a gun inside the house here.
There were people screaming, saying that let's call the police, and the police didn't pitch. Is it in line with the Pan-African Parliament, perhaps, for South African security to exercise caution?
What is happening with PAP, there are serious challenges in that there are no firm rules of the House where when a presiding officer order one to march out or to switch off the mic, a person does that. So here it's a free-for-all, and that's a problem. So when people were calling for police, they were saying police must come and assist adjournment so that we must not see more fights inside the House.
But to a person sitting at home somewhere in Nairobi, in Addis, or somewhere in Abuja, or perhaps Gaborone, Kapa Maseru, Kapa Mona Africa Borough, South Africa, Johannesburg, who is a proponent of a united Africa, what we saw earlier on, what do you say to them in terms of what we saw earlier on?
I think, Sophie, what is important is for us as Africans to unite. And if we are to unite, we must respect the protocols that we have signed. We must respect the upper structures. If there is a principle and a decision and a resolution by the upper structure, the lower organs must follow that. And here it was clear that there is undermining of AU. And we as the southern region and northern region, we are saying we cannot defy a principle that has been adopted. And this morning we received a legal opinion from AU that was saying elections must be based on rotation, and that is what we're defending. Rotation and nothing else. So the countries and regions that want to bully us, they've been doing that for years, and we're saying we have to put a stop on this and allow each and every region an opportunity to lead this continent.
The former president of the Pan-African Parliament, Roger Mkondo, his role, some saying he wants to rule from the grave.
Indeed, he has been doing that. You'll remember that Roger, in 2015, when it was supposed to be another region out of Central, Roger came back to contest for the second time. He came back for the third time. And for the sake of peace, we accepted that. But now we're saying we cannot be numb forever. We must take our rightful role. And we're doing exactly that. So he wants to rule from the grave to an extent that when the acting acting president of PAP is making a ruling, he'll contest that ruling. And he was given chance to lead, and he led autocratically in this PAP, and we cannot allow him to continue like that.
Thank you for your time, ma'am. Let's hope elections will continue.
No, they will. They will. We are saying, adjourn, come AU. We are prepared for elections. We want to craft a clear way forward. Election is just a piece of the session, but there are policy issues that must be discussed. Terrorism, the issue of COVID-19, the issue of poverty and underdevelopment in the continent. We have bigger issues to discuss, not this minute elections matter.
Thank you for your time, ma'am. There you have it, Pemmy Majodina. You know that she is the chief whip of the ANC in Parliament in Cape Town. Her saying that their issue is clear, or their position as a caucus from the southern region is that there must be a rotation to ensure that there's inclusivity. And she indicated that she is going to lay charges against a member of a Pan-African Parliament, arguing that the abuse and the harassment can be described as gender-based violence, and therefore there's no way she will allow that. We don't know, so we'll follow those announcements and the new developments around the tension that played itself here. But as you heard earlier on, I spoke about the guns. There she is saying that as far as she is concerned, there's no such a thing, and I cannot vouch for that, but it is true that when you enter the hall, there is a tight security and also a way to detect any metal that you have, and that would quickly indicate if someone has got a gun, starting from the gate. It is just that inside, the South African Police Service have respected the rules by not interfering with the deliberations outside, but inside. But outside, you do have the South African Police Service at the gate and at the door of the hall to ensure security. And we don't know. Let's wait. Maybe when they come back, we will be able to see them working together and agreeing on a way forward. But clearly the issue of the rotation, it is a sticking point. And we know that the West Africa is firm on its position that they don't support a rotation. We will try and get Mr. Roger to speak to him, Roger Nkondo, to speak to him because of this accusation that he is the one who is kind of mobilizing the West Africa region to reject the proposal from the AU on the rotation.
Sophie Mokoena giving us the rolling coverage of the proceedings of the Pan-African Parliament, coming to you live from Midrand. And of course, right now it's an adjournment. And as soon as the proceedings start, we'll cross live back to her. And continuing with Dr. Charles Singhala, African International Relations expert on this issue, we were talking about the point that you alluded to regarding how the former colonial masters are regarded as unequal amongst the former colonized countries. So we're looking at those who were colonized by the Portuguese, the Francophone, and the Anglo-Saxon countries. What do you make out of the ability of a united Africa to solve its own problems? As you were listening to the parting shot there of Pemmy Majodina, who was saying that this is just part of the proceedings, but the main points here are terrorism, and the issue of COVID-19, and one would also talk about the economic recovery going forward in terms of getting Africa to come out of this pandemic.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, it is very clear that what is happening there, it is a completely non-existence of working together culture. You know, first the Pan-African Parliament or the AU leadership in itself must show credibility in terms of mitigating and managing the distances in terms of racial, in terms of colonial imperialist masters, you know, and as well as in terms of language and ethnicity. as well as the complete differences or distance in terms of culture. When I came here in South Africa in 1997, I could see, before I could ask for direction, I was taught that you need to greet first, and it's something which I had to adapt, which is completely different from my country, Zambia, where I'm coming from. But if you come in a different place or environment, culture is very important to learn from the people how to respect them and how to answer those questions. And I think that also mitigates the opportunity for you to go into those pitfalls. And these are the things which we are seeing from the Pan-African Parliament, that the cultural distances, the language barriers, and many other factors, they hasn't been addressed. And you can see how the current president of Pan-African Parliament, Roger Gondo, whom I've tried for more than 10 years to meet him and see how we can participate in the Pan-African Parliament, since it is here in Midrand, has decided not to give the throne, to those leadership qualities which we have as well in South Africa. He is now grooming people from the Francophone countries, the East Africa and the Central Africa, to make him be the leader who will be onto that position for a very long time. Even if the AU has demonstrated and condemned the leadership into African member states of presidents such as Yoweri Museveni from Uganda, who cling on to power for a very long time. He's been as well very critical about that, but he's forgetting to look at the seat where he's sitting there. Can I give as well an opportunity to maybe another leader? This is the question that we talked about leadership earlier, that leadership shouldn't be based on what they are saying rotational, but there must be qualification towards that. It's not merely trying to rotate leadership from West Africa, Cameroon, where Roger Gondo comes from, to South Africa or to Mali or to another member state. But what quality is that leadership is going to bring? And some of these issues is to manage the cultural differences and distances that we have. And I think from there, it will be the beginning of working together. Yes, the Honorable Penny has talked about that they should be discussing issues of COVID and the economic recovery in Africa and the whatnot, and how Africa shouldn't be borrowing from outside. They should be borrowing from within the inside to promote their economic powers. But she's the one also who made this situation in Parliament so badly out of hand. She was not supposed to leave her seat to go and diffuse a fight among the parliamentary members. That also exacerbated the situation to go very badly. She was supposed to call the speaker to contend that. Immediately a third party gets involved in a conflict of two people, it makes things worse. So adult supervision, fortunately, it is required in Pan-African Parliament for us to have an agenda as adults and sit in Pan-African Parliament.
Dr. Singhala, let me interrupt you.
And what we need to do.
Yeah, Dr. Singhala, let me interrupt you. I actually am going to cross live back to Sophie Mokoena in a moment so that we can get Mr. Nkondo, so that we understand the reason him mobilizing other members of Parliament to reject this rotational system. But I want to ask you about the issue of inclusivity, as well as trying to rally around understanding cultural differences and working on conflict resolution when it comes to differences of opinion of people who are speaking different languages. As you can hear, dominant languages there are English and French. And when they try to interface, they cannot hear each other. They're relying on translations. And this doesn't really enhance the flow of debate. Is this really an excuse for people not to give each other a chance so that they can talk about the sensitivity of this issue of rotationalism?
No, not at all. All what we need to do is very simple, is to give the power to institutions. That's all. Review the processes and let people abide and follow those processes laid down by the institutions, such as the Pan-African Parliament. I'll give an example. When I was in the South African Parliament, during the speeches of SONA, members of Parliament were raising up hands when there is a State of the Nation addressed by the president of the country. I said that is wrong. When I, put my word to advise the leadership, the speaker, in Parliament, I said, no, can you suspend members' contribution during a State of the Nation address, and which has been looked at, and they have addressed it. So if you see now the next State of the Nation address by the President of South Africa, you see that people or members of Parliament, they are not raising point of orders. But when you start relating issues of respecting people's opinion, like the way our world now has become too opinionistic, each and every opinion we must listen to it because it's democracy, it becomes a problem, because now you'll be listening to people's feelings, people's ideologies, or people's emotions, rather than having an institution such as Pan-African Parliament with one agenda to unite the Africans, to make sure that Africa becomes the biggest economical hub, that the world will admire, which will have less unemployment and less people with poverty, and the creation of industrialization of Africa. Once we have that in institutions, then people, they change all the time. People, they die all the time. But if we have the power in institutions to condemn what is happening now in Pan-African Parliament, to put a stop and suspend those members of Parliament who've got self-interest rather than the institutional interest of Pan-African Parliament, then that will be the beginning of us in that Pan-African Parliament to see now good results, or people who are adults discussing and debating on the African affairs. But as long as we would like to hear the opinions of people, what they want to say, what they want to mobilize, but is it the Constitution allows it? Even President Gondo himself is not an angel. Yes, it's not that I've got a beef against him, but if the power within the institution of Pan-African Parliament strictly says you are restricted to 2 terms, then if he comes there, even if he can mobilize the whole global population of 7.5 billion people, they won't vote for him because the institution says 2 terms. But if the institution's policies, they do not adapt to situations, and going forward, we shall forever have problems within our institutions, such as the Pan-African Parliament.
Okay, so there's still coming Parliament. As I'm looking at the visuals now, doesn't look like any time from now the proceedings will resume. So I want to now relate this issue to the African peer review mechanism. If we see chaos like this in the Pan-African Parliament, imagine a gathering where countries have to talk about peer review mechanisms that speak to democracy, human rights, as well as democratic rule. We see a lot of coups on the African continent. We see rebels trying to dethrone or overthrow governments that have been democratically elected. Sometimes you see the military taking over a democratically elected government. So when it comes to issues of democratization of the African continent and the rule, it would become a problem for them to listen to each other. What do you make out of that?
We are back here at the Pan-African Parliament, but to ensure balance and fair coverage of the deliberations here, we now have the member of the Pan-African Parliament from South Sudan, who is also a candidate, Mr. Albino Gorge. Sir, the deliberations cannot continue because of one issue, the elections. For Africans who are watching what's happening here, is this what Pan-African Parliament should be about, just elections?
Yes, deliberation cannot happen not because of every member, because of the individual who are not happy with the election. We are a parliamentary, we are not answerable to the executive power. We are answerable to the people of Africa, and therefore rules are rules, and the election was set up to be today. On 27, the election was changed because due to the COVID and some others which are not well known. Therefore, the election must be held today.
The argument around the rotation, no rotation, from your side as East Africa, and you being the candidate, what's your view?
Rotation, it is good. It is good for all Africa. Rotation within the family, rotation within the region, rotation within the continent. But the pretext of the rotation at this particular time is not the right time, because you have to pass the rule and it has to be voted in. I believe in rotation as a candidate. I came from South Sudan, and therefore, from my background, if given a chance, I was given a chance, and why not giving the others a chance?
Now, how are you going to resolve this? Clearly, there's a stand of Africa divided according to regions. How are you going to ensure that post-elections there's synergy and you are working together?
There is an official communication from the Office of the Secretary General, which has articulated who are qualified and who are not qualified. The only region which is not qualified here is the central region. The rest are qualified. So we need to adapt after the election and to enforce the rotation. But the rotation cannot be enforced before the rules. And the rules are rules.
Now you're talking about the central region. Clearly the former leader of the Pan-African Parliament has been criticized for interfering with the deliberations here, and perhaps regions trying to find a solution. What's your observation?
Which one are you talking about? Roger Donkododang?
Yes, the former president.
Of the PAP?
Yes.
What have he said?
There are reports that he has been pushing a candidate from Mali, and it is for that reason this has led to perhaps a heated standoff.
Allow the democracy to take place. Whether they are from Mali, under the rule and regulation of the African Union, each individual and each state is qualified to run for the election. If they have whatever agreement they have between themselves, that is personal. It has nothing to do with the Pan-African Parliament. Therefore, we cannot accuse any individual without knowing exactly why are we accusing that person for.
There was also some tension, and other people are complaining that they were mishandled, particularly a woman from South Africa, and she has indicated that she is going to lay charges against a member of parliament who kicked her. Your view on gender-based violence on the continent and in different countries as a person who aspires to lead this house?
Well, first of all, happy Mother Day, yesterday. I believe mothers are actually the diamond and the backbone of every family. So nobody have the right to go against any woman. I have a mother, and I see every woman like my mother. So anything which will actually touch the mother is unacceptable, and it should not be accepted, and it should not be tolerated.
Thank you so much for your time, sir.
I appreciate it.
There you have it, a candidate from Sudan representing the East Africa region, saying that they don't support what happened here, the chaos that prevailed, and also saying that all candidates must be allowed to contest the elections, but indicating that indeed there's a letter from the Secretariat that has given a way forward in terms of what needs to happen here. So let's wait and see.
Right, Sophie Mokoena giving us an update on the proceedings there as they still adjourned, and she was speaking to a candidate there who was actually responding generally to the issue of gender-based violence and referring to that incident that we saw earlier, that nobody should go against a woman. And of course, I'm still having Dr. Singhala, who is our guest, the Africa and International Relations expert, to take us through as we interpret the issues regarding what's happening at the Pan-African Parliament. So we were just trying to juxtapose the leadership of African countries in solving their own problems. So earlier I asked you a question about African peer review mechanism, and one would actually draw an inference that when you look at peer review, we look at the different democracies and governments that are in place that have many things that are happening in them. So how can these countries keep each other under check if they are interacting like this, for example, at the Pan-African Parliament?
Yes, thank you very much indeed. Before I could answer that question in terms of peer management and leadership, the candidate from Sudan, it is actually the symbolizing of how members of parliament feel. Not only Sudan from the country comes from, but members of parliament in Pan-African Parliament should be answerable to their people in their respective constituencies and not with the executive. That is a problem, because there's no way you can work with the executive and you do not listen to them. And these members of the people, ordinary people in constituencies, they cannot hold the leaders into account only when there's a time of voting after 5 years. But during that period of time, a member of parliament must behave properly to the executive body that presides over him. So in terms of peer management, in terms of leadership, it is critical thinking which dictates that peer thinking or reference in terms of impact study. Yes, you can review in terms of peer on how the things were handled in the past and the impact, but the science of things has to take precedence. There's no way you can take advantage of that science of the leadership, where people are account to whatever which they do. Consequence management, must be there. What is the purpose of management as you have been appointed as a member of parliament? What are the wins? What are the goals? What are the losses that you're going to have to mitigate or manage from the past leadership which was not there? And where is the Africa at this stage compared to 60 years ago? Are we on the trajectory that is building an African community of one working together in unison in solving out the African problems? But unfortunately, leadership are not answerable in terms of legal fraternity. You can see as well the leadership, political leaders in South Africa, who has even the biggest power, are just immediately after attending a court case of allegations of corruption or any malfeasances, they are able to have that mandate from the constitution to address the members from outside the court to prove that the court system, it is actually biased against me. So how do we give now people the opportunity to have so much freedom, which actually depletes the main importance of the critical leadership in terms of managing our own selves?
So let's go back to the issue of that gender-based violence incident that we saw earlier. I just want to pick your brain on the issue of diplomatic immunity. Let me just focus on how members of parliament get in the country to attend these proceedings and go back to their parliaments at home, the time they're going to travel. When it comes to their diplomatic status, if there is one, what's going to happen? How is it going to unfold if a case of a diplomat, rather a case against a diplomat is opened? Would he be able to skip the country even though a case would be opened? And will he be arrested?
Of course, the 1961 Vienna Convention, in terms of diplomatic core, and the immunity dictates that one can behave in a manner that is not detrimental to the laws of the land where they are. But again, it's a process that they have to take. That in the case of the Malian member of parliament, who we hear that he allegedly threatened Julius Malema, the other member of parliament, to kill, they have to take the immunity out. It's a process, which in none of the cases has even won any materialistic purpose in terms of them working together. Yes, within the institution, as Pan-African Parliament, there is the integrity committees which looks after the the conduct of members of parliament. And since you mentioned about the gender-based violence incident regarding Honorable Pemmy, you can see, of course, from yourself, you don't have to study law like me, to see how the gender-based violence was ignited. That member of parliament should have sat put on her chair there comfortably, and none of the punches should have come to her. But did she exacerbate to the gender-based violence? Was she also, trying to be in the forefront to make sure that the situation gets out of hand? These are the issues which we look at. Many of these issues in terms of gender-based violence, they are not looked at how things were made. I'm quite very happy on how I watch the air crash investigations. When the aeroplane goes down from the sky, they will have the SSB, and all the regional air flight people to investigate why the plane came down. But in terms of issues which we have in Africa, whether gender-based violence or accidents or criminal activities, they are not investigated. Or what we pray for and we chant about all the time is to put that person behind the bars, for a long time. Here as well in South Africa, I heard there was one person who committed the serial murders in South Africa is being jailed for 900 years. But how did he do it? What made him to behave such inhumanly? The more we investigate these issues on how the causation, the root cause of such cases, will start avoiding the cases. In fact, even the victims shall be protected. I'm not supporting that the way the man conducted himself to a woman was good, but it's both ways it is wrong. We need to make sure that we behave like honorable members and not horribles. To pick up now, they have to start going to court cases to talk about who was wrong and who was right, instead of the system and the judicial system, rather the Pan-African Parliament institution, to start discussing issues. Look at the footage of what is happening. There's total confusions of adults who need adult supervision.
Well, Dr. Singhala, I'll come back to that issue if Sophie is not yet ready to speak to us about this issue of the incident where Pemmy Majodina was kicked. But, when it comes to what you said earlier, that she shouldn't have stood up from her seat and went to intervene when there was a scuffle down there. But on the other hand, one would disagree with you and say, other members of parliament got off their seats and they were not kicked. So did she really know that she was putting herself in harm's way when she stood up and went to intervene in a scuffle? Does it mean that if she has to sit down and behave like an honorable member of parliament, but when others are standing to go and intervene, those members of parliament are women from other countries, nobody was kicking them? So then is it now okay to blame her for standing up and going to intervene like other women?
Yeah, look, if you look at the footage, most of the people involved in the scuffle or who were kicked, they are those people who wanted to go and perform a function of security in parliament. When you go to parliament, there is that induction which is given to you, that the security powers lies with the security people. You're not supposed to perform a function which is not supposed to be within your authority. Your powers is to sit as a member of parliament, debate on the issues, and these are the processes. There is the rule book there, section 34 and 35 of the Pan-African Parliament, which signifies on how members of parliament should conduct themselves. Of course, when you overstep your boundary, like what the Chadian president did, after just being elected as a president for another term in Chad, he went to the battlefield where these guns and the munitions and all bombs are passing there. Of course, you're going to be shot. I'm not blaming the victim, but I'm saying, how do we learn from such an incident like that? How can we condemn it? So if all of them can be disciplined by sitting down in their positions and territory, I'm sure we're going to have less things. Now, if we see a member of parliament standing up, going to beat or, do some physical damage to a member of parliament who is sitting physically, then we can identify now, we can tell the difference between who is wrong and who is right, because you have seen an intent of somebody walking towards somebody and committing such an offense. But if the people are on the battlefield, they are on the ring, both of them, they are standing, who can come and, tell the difference? Yes, I respect all the views from the angle, but this is uncalled for, because the members of parliament, they go extensively into the training on how to conduct yourself, even the training on how to eat in public. It's one of the courses that you have to attend.
You referred to the issue of ethics, but again, two wrongs don't make a right. When it comes to the gravity of assault in parliament, kicking a woman, do you think the Pan-African Parliament itself must discipline that member? Should disciplinary action and consequence management be taken against him?
Of course, he must be suspended, and I want to see that that member of parliament who kicked the honorable member must be suspended permanently. We are not short of leaders. Leaders can be replaced to come and stand and represent us, because already we have the campaign of non-violence against women and children, but when we see somebody called honorable member raising up not only the voice but the hand physically to kick the woman in full view of also all lots of these cameras which are hosting such a big event, including our on SABC, that just shows the integrity and the morality of that individual, that person should not belong to here. That person should belong either to jail or wherever he can be, because he cannot be part. No apology will take from a person to do such an offense to a woman, regardless what the woman did. Let's look at how he reacted to it. Actually, many scholars and many philosophers, as mentioned, it's not what has happened, it's how we react to it. It is most important thing. So how you react to something, even if you are wrong, but if you react in a way that you commit a crime, in fact, the crime which was committed to you will be overlooked.
Mm-hmm. And then let's track back to last week when Julius Malema was saying to another member of parliament that I'm going to kill you. That's a death threat. And it said in parliament, it's in full view of other members of parliament. It can be heard throughout the world during a live broadcast. And the chairperson of the proceedings didn't say anything about it. And we heard today another member of parliament saying that there's a member of parliament who said, I'm going to kill you. You didn't say anything about it. So today you want to take control of the proceedings. What kind of a chairperson does the Pan-African Parliament need when it comes to taking authority and running these proceedings, where the person can be able to control who speaks when to switch on the microphone, when to leave the microphones on, so that the debate can go on even when there's a point of order?
Yes, of course. This goes to the leadership of the chairperson. You cannot apply the rules of the House differently, depending on who has committed such an offense. Firstly, those members who actually committed, like the last week incident, who are not supposed to be allowed to come in Parliament. But I'm surprised that I've seen some of the members who are committed there, they're back in Parliament. And without addressing the past, in terms of conflict within the Parliament, it brings up the leadership question to who is presiding over the Pan-African Parliament. In fact, these issues, when you preside as a chairperson, I've presided over committees many times. Even yourself, you don't have to have the experience to preside over in the National Assembly or any other institutions. You can see that the room temperature, the tempers, the debate is going out of hand. You can either adjourn, you've got the power to adjourn, let's take this to recess, let's adjourn this proceedings for another 1 hour or 20 minutes or 5 minutes, then people can go and refresh and come back. But if the leader of Pan-African Parliament as a chairperson is sitting and things escalate to such an extent that people have to raise up chairs and punches and start beating themselves, then that poses the question to the leadership. Of course, because he's in charge. He's got the command of the armed forces and the security provided by the South African Defence Force and as well as by the South African Police Service. They are all visible within there. In fact, the coat of arms is within the parliament there, you know, because things does not happen just suddenly, everybody is pushing and whatever. It ignites for something, some comments. In fact, if you talk about what you've actually contrasted, the converse is actually very true, because the way he reacted onto the case previously, he showed biasness onto the other side, reasonable intervention in terms of bias, and this has exacerbated the House now to go out of.
All right, Dr. Singhala, I really want to thank you so much for making time to speak to us the whole afternoon. We took you out of your schedule to put you live on air for such a long time. Your patience is really appreciated. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, Dr. Charles Singhala, African International Relations expert, speaking to us live right here on SABC News. We cross live back to Parliament. Our foreign editor, Sophie Mokoena, is standing by. Sophie, what do you have for us now?
Thank you so much, Colin. We are back here at the Pan-African Parliament as we have promised. The Member of Parliament who did kick Pemmy Majodina, the Member of Parliament of South Africa, who's part of the SADC caucus, is with me here. He has apologized to Pemmy Majodina, but we want to get this apology directly from him. Sir, what transpired earlier on? Many people are saying it wasn't good for the image of the Pan-African Parliament, a woman being kicked, and you did this. Why? Are you not ashamed?
Speak French or not? Speak French?
Can you try English a bit?
Yeah. Since yesterday, me and MP of my country, Senegal, to come here to represent our country and the MP. Now we are coming here for the election of the chairperson of the PAP. But since years, the president interim of the PAP, Charambira, knowing that he loves this election, I make many traffic and the chairperson and the rule that to give rules that are not just, you understand me. They try to make the rotation does not applicate in our rules, in our fundamental text. Yesterday you see that when Julius Malema is coming here to threaten one of them to kill him out. This afternoon, we are making all trouble. This morning, we are coming here about where there is animation to impeach.
But you are not answering my question. Why did you kick a woman, an MP?
No, I don't kick a woman, an MP. That's not our education. When you have to talk with the man of the Zimbabwe, this is a man, we are coming to take money, or lawyer me, to take his phone, to take me that you are not. I don't allow you to take my picture. That's the protection of personal donor, you understand me? So at this time, when I try to put off his phone, there's a good woman going to separate us. But at this time, I take my feet to put off the phone of the other. But our education in our country allowed us to talk to one and then to be no, is that.
So you were not kicking the Member of Parliament, Pemmy Majodina. You were trying to kick a phone from the Zimbabwe delegate.
No, the former delegation, or the president and the chairman was our rules, how trafficate and document to make allow that, to make to believe that this is the right document. Me, I'm the chairperson of the rules committee. I said that the document you have to present here is not valuable. In order to discuss, you try to walk to the Mokoena. No, we are here for the election. It's the sworn of new parliament and after the election. But he is the same country of Charambira.
But sir, the video is there. The video is there. You are kicking.
I tell you. I have not the intention to touch the woman I told you. But when I tell someone to over him to take me in pictures, at this time, this woman come to separate us. But at this time, I take my good to put off the man of that, is what that, but now I have not the intention because this woman, she can tell you that I never have problem of her. Every time I take him that you look like of the woman of our country. Is that the truth? And I ask Agolja now, I have not the interest for me to look at the girl and son to beat her. But when a man how to talk to me, I tell my woman, our education, we in Africa West, that. Then you say, I tell you, no, unfortunately, but that wasn't my intention to make you that. It's only that, and I ask them to apologize.
So you have apologized to her?
Yeah, I'm not ashamed to do that. If I was the intention to do that, I don't need to apologize. Yeah, but when I show that that's not my intention, I have to do that. No, I'm not shameful to that.
Pemmy, you are here. You had indicated earlier on that you are going to lay charges of violence against women. He is saying that the intention was not to kick you, but rather to kick a phone that was held by the Zimbabwe MP who was taking his photo, and he didn't want that. How far true is this story?
Mr. Jibiri, Mr. Roger, and 3 more other MPs, they came to me. I was with Honorable Malema and Honorable Majola. Mr. Jibiri came to me to say he really wanted to apologize. It was not his intention to kick at me. He was trying to kick at a Zimbabwe man, not me. But I was caught up in a crossfire as I was trying to separate them. So he was really apologetic and very sorry to say he does not, even in his own country. When I told him that this is a very serious case of gender-based violence in South Africa, you don't beat a woman. So he has apologized under those reasons, and I have no qualms in accepting an apology because this was a very hot fight, and AMNO was not fighting. It might happen that I was then caught up in that crossfire.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for your time, sir. There you have it, Colin.
Our education is not to touch the woman. Every time I see that, she looks like our girl for our country. Every time I tell him that. But the man who has to take Amurul, your man are not her right to take an image of someone if they are not allowed to you. I did stop to me. When they come to me, let that, I'm obliged to take off this phone, but at this time, the fortunate girl is coming to try to separate us. Is why this situation is coming.
Thank you for
I'm very sorry, I'm very sorry, I'm very sorry.
Thank you for your time, sir.
I'm not ashamed to make that. I ask you to apologize. You are my sister. We are the same continent here. Is that?
Thank you, sir. There you have it, Colin. He is saying that that was not his intention to kick Pemmy Majodina. He was trying to kick a phone that was used by the Zimbabwean member of Parliament taking his video, and he didn't want that. And therefore, Pemmy saying that quite a number of MPs who are from West Africa came and apologized to her. And it looks like this matter will be resolved. But
the apology has been accepted, and one thing that has been very interesting this whole afternoon is, in the first place, why did he take off his jacket? But anyway, let's take a break. We'll be back. We'll see you at the top of the hour. Don't go away.